How about a Coppola quick facts?
This is, like I said, Richard Stanley's first feature film in 24 years since the infamous The Island of Dr. Moreau, which pretty much destroyed Marlon Brando's career. That was pretty much like the last major thing that Marlon Brando was ever involved in. In a Q&A with Richard Stanley, he claimed that the film was going to be a part of a trilogy, which I got really excited about because I've always liked Lovecraft stories. One of my favorite movies that I saw back in the, going to a video store and just renting random movies based on the covers was this movie called Dagon, which is a Lovecraft story, and I really, really loved it. And I always have had a hard time wrapping my head around why aren't there more Lovecraft movies? And of course, like we said, they're just insanely hard to adapt to film because they're indescribable.
Yeah, I haven't watched Lovecraft Country on HBO, but apparently that's a really good.
I've heard that's really great too.
Adapting it.
It seems like as visual effects have gotten better, it's become easier to adapt Lovecraft. Unfortunately, though, he wanted to do the Dunwich Horror, that book, and he was planning on doing it right after Color Out of Space. But in March 2021, the trilogy was canceled after Stanley was accused of domestic abuse by his former partner, Scarlett Amaris, who he wrote this movie with. And the production company Spectravision completely cut all relations with him. So they went out on a limb to hire him in the first place after all of this craziness, that with The Island of Dr. Moreau, 24 years without making a movie. And then he makes this kind of brilliant little film, and then he fucks it all up with domestic abuse. But, it sucks because honestly, I feel like this guy gets it. He understands what Lovecraft was going for, and it's really sad to think that this is not going to happen anymore. By the way, did you see Spectravision? One of the main producers is Elijah Wood.
No.
Yeah, I saw that in the credits.
Wasn't he involved in a video game recently with television or acting or something? I wonder if that's part of that.
Could be,
weird relationship. I remember it was a couple years ago now. He was working on some project that was going to be a weird augmented reality Xbox video game thing, and it probably through his company.
It seems like he's really involved in the production side of things now. So that's cool.
Yeah.
The narrator's name in this film is Ward Phillips, which is actually H.P. Lovecraft's name. Howard Phillips Lovecraft is H.P. Lovecraft's full name. So Ward Phillips was a direct take from Howard Phillips, which is pretty cool. Richard Stanley's favorite movie of Nicolas Cage is the movie that we did in our last episode, Vampire's Kiss. And he actually asked Cage to use the same style of performance as he did in Vampire's Kiss, which is so clear in this movie. He does the same accent. He has the same kind of over-the-top, zaniness throughout the whole thing. When he really goes into... I had a question about it, which we'll probably talk about in a couple of questions, but is he actually channeling his dad? Is his dad, maybe his dad is buried on the property and he's actually becoming his dad in those moments when he goes crazy, because he switches to his dad's accent every time he kind of loses his mind for a moment.
Yeah.
Which is, of course, Peter Lowe's accent from.
Right. So in my head canon, his dad is Peter Lowe.
Yeah.
From an earlier timeline.
Yeah.
He's some weird vampire rape baby of Peter Lowe.
So at one point, I didn't know this, but apparently Nicolas Cage went in search of the Holy Grail. An actual search. He went looking for the Holy Grail. And apparently, so did Richard Stanley. Completely unrelated to him. They both had different times in their lives when they tried to seek out the Holy Grail.
What the fuck?
Wow.
It's a crazy tidbit. Yeah, they need to make that movie. Oh my god.
That should be National Treasure 3.
Yeah.
Just rip off Indiana Jones even more.
Come on, Richard.
That's crazy because like
find
he's
the
got his
Holy
production
Grail.
company, right? Like Nic Cage has his own production company, so he could hire Richard Stanley and they could make a movie about finding the Holy Grail.
You know, that's not a bad idea. Maybe Nic Cage could hire Richard Stanley through Saturn Films and make another Lovecraft movie.
Nice.
Though it seems like Nic Cage only works. Saturn Films seems to only exist for Nicolas Cage movies. So, I mean,
Well, yeah,
do you do
obviously.
every Lovecraft movie would be starring Nicolas Cage? I don't know. Nicolas Cage apparently always wanted to make a Lovecraft adaptation as a tribute to his father, August Coppola, who is Francis Ford Coppola's older brother, who was a huge fan of H.P. Lovecraft. So it's kind of, he finally was able to fulfill that. Though I'm not sure if his dad is still alive or not. So I'm not sure if he saw that, but that was pretty cool. Nigel, I'm sure you're going to probably mention this later on, but when Nathan and Ward first meet, Nathan asks Ward if he's from Boston, with Ward saying he's from Providence. H.P. Lovecraft was born in Providence, Rhode Island, and it was the place where he spent most of his life. And even in his gravestone, in his epitaph, it says, "I am Providence." So, like, that was one of the things that he was most proud of in his life, was being born and raised in Providence, which I've been to Providence, and it's, I guess it's nice. And then the final couple of quick fact here is this entire movie was shot in Portugal, which
What?
yeah,
Really?
Wow.
yeah, which it feels very New England.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was completely shot in Portugal in this little foresty area. I forget the name of it, but it's kind of like famous. It's got like castles and stuff, and there's like some spooky stories about the woods being haunted there too. So
That's really cool.
kind of
awesome.
fits. Yeah.
So I had a couple of things, like, since I was talking about the story itself, I wanted to talk a little bit about, some of the background of the story. And then there's a cool little scientific fact that I stumbled on last night, completely on accident. But as far as the story goes, this was H.P. Lovecraft's personal favorite short story that he ever wrote. Was
I
The
didn't know
Color
that.
Out of Space.
Yeah.
It was written in 1927 and it was published in the sci-fi magazine Amazing Stories. He was paid $25 for it at the time, which was about $370 in today's money.
Jeez.
So even then, he made no
Dang.
money off of it.
Yeah.
But he just really... I couldn't really find out why it was his personal favorite, but he just cited it as his favorite story. And a lot of critics say it's one of his best stories because it blends science fiction with horror in a way that wasn't really being done back then.
Yeah.
He claimed his inspiration for it was the newly constructed Scituate Reservoir in Rhode Island. So that was his impetus for creating the whole thing. It's like, what if the land was tainted that they built a reservoir on? I can make a story about that. But
Yeah.
it's also likely that he was inspired by research into radiation and the visible light spectrum that was going on at the time, because this was, again, the 1920s that this was written. So a lot of that was cutting edge science that was being done.
Yeah.
So it's likely due to the fact that he also wanted to create a life form that was truly alien, because so he did that by basically just making it a light that was inexplainable, and it was an impossible, indescribable or impossible light due to the fact that it was beyond the spectrum visible to human eyes, and that maybe the characters who are witnessing it could suddenly see that light, which is why it was creepy. As a weird side effect, the something called the color space was developed by scientists in 1931, which is funny that this is called the color out of space, which, obviously it's from space, but interesting thing. But the color space graphic, if you guys ever look it up, it's kind of hard to describe because it's a visual thing. But if you want to imagine like a single arc, that's filled in with every color the human eye can possibly see, and the outer edges of the arc are the colors of the rainbow that are, Roy G. Biv, red, orange, yellow, green, blue, whatever.
Indigo,
violet. Yeah, those are all colors that are made with a single wavelength of light that are natural to the universe or to our eyes. Along the bottom of it, though, is a line of all the purples and magentas and pinks that have to be created by a combination of red and blue light together, or violet and red together. And because of that, they are not natural colors in the sense that a single wavelength of light will not create them. Our eyes create them based on how they interpret different wavelengths of light coming in. So I thought it was, when I watched that, I realized that that's probably why they picked this for this movie, is to portray everything in a magenta purplish light, because it's almost an alien light form, and it's the best thing you can do when trying to film something that is unfilmable, like a color that humans can't see.
Yeah, they did mention that in the behind the scenes, that they chose the color specifically because it was, something that the human mind creates itself.
Yeah.
It's not an actual color that exists. We make it in our brains.
Yeah, which is super cool. Which I thought that was, when I learned that, I was like, wow, they actually, I thought they used it because it looked really cool and creepy, but the fact that they put that much thought into it was really, really a nice little tidbit of fact for the movie.
Yeah.
Oh, I just wanted to point out, in the story, his wife's name was Nabby, and his kids' names were Thaddeus, Merwin, and Zenos.
Yeah, Zenos. I forgot
Zenos.
So they're just, again, I don't know if those are real names or if he just was trying to pick weird country bumpkin names to give everybody.
I wonder if he just, it seems like the names are always kind of weird in Lovecraft stories, so maybe he's...
Yeah, it's his thing, maybe, just to make it more otherworldly.
Yeah.